Well, the one stage is when you move from Athens to Imperial Rome. Because in Athens, you've got to die, all right, you're sentenced to death, hemlock is, poison is brought in, you drink it and that's it. And if you're Socrates, of course, you die calmly. But in Imperial Rome, Nero is terrible. Actually, he's telling people, you're condemned to death. So you have it, you can do it yourself, or we'll do it. This, by the way, will happen to him as well, because when he is pursued by his enemies, finally, people in Rome cannot stand him anymore, the soldiers pursue him, and he asks his slave to kill him. He doesn't have enough courage to actually run into the sword. So Tacitus recounts. Tacitus quite very plain and absolutely, faithful to his method. But because you have a tyrant, and a tyrant can do whatever he likes. And when the tyrant is even more barbarous than Nero, like Theodoric, Theodoric is an Ostrogoth. I mean, he's been educated, yes, like a Roman in Constantinople, but he's basically a barbarian. So, no attention whatsoever, is no care, really. I mean, it's simply take the man's head. And Boethius had been, like Seneca for Nero, an advisor, a Roman senator. I mean, he was not just one that Theodoric did not know. He knew him perfectly well. But apparently he thought that Boethius was involved in a plot against him to overthrow him. And so this was it. I mean, it's not Christianity that has to do with it. I mean, these things happen in spite of Christianity. But Theodoric is a Christian. He's an Arian, not a Roman Catholic, as it were. But what gets him is simply the fact that he's a barbarian, and has no respect for human life. I don't know, nobody knows the way Boethius actually reacted on the day of his death. Indeed. Yes, I might add it, actually. Thank you so much. I thought the men were enough, but I mean, yeah, definitely. Hypatia is a terrible thing. A pagan martyr as well. Things are controversial, of course, but it is quite a story, that one, too. Yeah.
She was a philosopher, I believe she was a philosopher.
Oh, she was, yes, indeed, she was. She was, very much so. Yes. I mean, if you go on with it, and you can, of course, throughout the Middle Ages and then the modern eras, and martyrs of kings or rulers, there are all over the place. All over Europe, in fact. Think of Thomas More, one example, John Fisher, all the Catholic martyrs in England, and of course, conversely, Protestant martyrs in Catholic countries, all over the place. Religion apparently doesn't mean, well, we know that you can, you actually show some care for your enemies, and that you or some pity even. No. They have to die, and they have to die in the most gruesome manner too. Yeah.
Is the line
I mean, if you go to Campo dei Fiori in Rome, there in January 1600, Giordano Bruno was burned alive. Why? By the church authorities. Why? Why was he burned alive? I mean,
you could also condemn somebody else to be
yes. But you could have poisoned him. It would have been easy enough. But no, that was not enough. Yes, of course, it's men and women. It is men and women, but men and women often use philosophy and or theology to justify the killing.
They use ideas.
Well, yes, and more. In a way, because Christian writings, and indeed the Bible, are stories. And it's a point often made by Michael and also by his friend and disciple in some ways, Jean-Pierre Sonnet at the Gregorian, that, faith is taught by means of stories. And when you read those stories, you've got to suspend disbelief, so to speak, in many ways. But you get closer. So yes, stories are absolutely essential. Michael talks about imagination, of course, in the last book, sorry, Into Extra Time. And, the imagination is absolutely important. That's the way Socrates means it too. He says, well, of course, it is not exactly like this. It is not exactly true. But it is well worth taking the risk, because the risk is beautiful. And we we move forward with this. And, when you read Phaedo, you actually, those words that I quoted, what is the next world for him? This is after the Apology. It is very much like Dante's world. It's like the Divine Comedy, where those who are punished, those who purify themselves, and those who are already somewhere, which will be called paradise, but here it is not. So that the traditional accounts of which he talks are exactly the same, or very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar. And that's what's so beautiful, kalos, and wonderful too, because the wonder is always there in Greek writings, of course. The taumastos is essential. And that comes from stories too. Like the story of his death, which is perfectly natural. There's nothing, it's not miraculous. Oedipus's death is a miracle, as it were. Not a miracle by etymologically speaking, miraculum. Socrates' death is not a miraculum. But it is deep down another kind of wonder, that a man could say, well, I know this is going to be better than the life I've had so far. And in any case, so don't cry, don't weep, there's no reason. Extraordinary, actually, when you read it. I think even when one reads it the first time. But as Aristotle said, or if not Aristotle, one of his pupils said in the Problems, he said, why is it that music we have already heard pleases us more than music we listen to the first time? Interesting. So the more you read the account, the more you like it, and the more you're pleased by it, and the more you are also amazed by it. This, of course, doesn't apply only to Plato and recounting the death of Socrates. It also applies to the Gospels. It is true of great poetry, of course, generally. Also, it doesn't make any difference whether that poetry comes from the ancient world or the medieval period, or indeed modern. If you read the four quartets, that's what you get, especially in the last one, but I think throughout the four quartets. But Little Gidding is, from the very beginning, a kind of poetry that alludes to something else. And if you actually hear Eliot reading it himself, that comes out very, very strongly. Very strongly. So, yes, I agree. And some poetry is extraordinary in that respect. You have to listen to it, though. That's the problem. You have to, or read it very carefully. Above all, not read it as a scholar, I think. Though scholarship helps in some ways, because you get to know the stuff more intimately. But I think you have to read it as a reader, or listen to it as a true listener, and not as just a critic or a scholar or a philologist. Philology kills everything else, It's fine. I mean, you need it to get to a certain point. Then you've got to throw it out of the window, I think, and go on your own fashion.